and you're watching Interface. A warm welcome to you. My name is Tembisa Marele. Well, right in the middle of the Fees Must Fall campaign has been the National Student Financial Aid Scheme, NSFAS, with many saying it is not delivering on its mandate. NSFAS met with student representatives this weekend, and tonight we are in conversation with Msulwa, Daca, who is the CEO of NSFAS. And as usual, you can always join in the conversation if you would like to do so on our social media pages. And you can do so on Facebook at Interface on SABC2 or on Twitter at Interface on SABC or at Tembisa Marele. Thank you very much for your time. Welcome to the program.
Good evening. Thanks for having me.
So like I said, right in the middle of this call for free education, this call for fees to fall has been your organization. And some are saying, look, you're not doing nearly enough to assist the students. What would you say to that?
I'll start by saying it's rather unfair, not only to NSFAS, but to the state. The state has invested quite a lot of money to assist hundreds of thousands of students. And we have been saying this, that in as much as that number has been increasing, it is not enough to fund all the students. And I understand the anxieties on the other end that says there's a whole lot of students that are still unfunded. And NSFAS has been saying that, you know, in as much as we're investing a lot of money, there's still students that are unfunded, but also there's been some programs that have been in place. I think what the students have done have raised the issue sharply and make us to refocus ourselves, you know, instead of, you know, having all these discussions. I think now we have to start implementing some of the things that we've been discussing for a number of years.
But why haven't you been implementing those things? Because, I mean, back in the days when I was still a student, we were calling for fees to fall or for education to really be affordable for students. And it was not happening then, and it's not happening now.
I think on the affordability front, it's a much broader issue that involves the universities and the department. But from a NSFAS perspective, if you just look on how things have shifted over the last 5 or 6 years, the NSFAS money has tripled, you know, and that is part of the implementation of ensuring that more and more students are being assisted. But again, you know, with tripling of NSFAS money, there's been an increased enrollment at universities, which means that, you know, we've been chasing a moving target, because on this side we have, as a government, a target to increase the participation rates. On the other hand, as NSFAS, we've been getting more and more money from the state. But then there's been that catch-up exercise. Not like we have been sitting and just talking about it. There's been work that has been done, but again, it was not enough to cover everyone.
Let's talk about the strategic direction of the organization and the scheme itself. So if you listen to some of what the minister has said about the organization, if you read some of the reports that have come out, part of the problem seems to have been in the strategy and in the direction of this organization. Where is it going?
Let me start by where it came from. Right. NSFAS has been working on a model where it takes money, it disperses money to the universities, and then it relies heavily on the universities to run the whole application process up to the disbursements to students. And that has been the history of NSFAS up to about 2013. And then in 2013, we decided that that model is not working, and that was informed by also a ministerial review on NSFAS that says NSFAS must change. It must have a much more direct relationship with the students. And therefore, we've started now as a strategic imperative to move NSFAS closer to the student. We started rolling out a pilot program in 2014 that involves students applying online directly to NSFAS, students interacting with NSFAS in terms of getting their allowances from NSFAS. Because part of the complaints that students raise with us is, in as much as you, NSFAS, have paid, we have not received our money. Because NSFAS does not pay directly to the students, it pays to the universities.
So one of the things that came out of your annual report that was released this year is that only 21.4% of your strategic objectives that you had set out were actually achieved in this year. And that's a problem. That's like a 20% pass rate.
You're correct. And I think that also gave us a wake-up call, because what is an institution? One of the key targets that as an institution we have not met is the targets on recoveries and the targets on fundraising. And we're now refocusing ourselves to ensure that we do meet the targets on fundraising, and we also meet the target. Because with the whole discussion now around fees must fall, you know, we have been asking ourselves as NSFAS, what is our role? What could we have done? Or what could we do going forward? And one of the things that we think we can do better is to talk to more people about raising funding, but also talking to those that we assisted and say, we assisted you, we gave you a loan, and it's only fair that you contribute back to the system so that we can assist the current student.
But I think what I'm trying to get at is that that was always the plan from the very beginning, that you would assist the students and then you would recover. And we're going to talk a little bit later about the recovery rates and all of that. But that was always the idea. So if come 2014-2015 financial year, you're still getting 21.4% of those strategic objectives correct, something is fundamentally wrong in the system. What is it?
Something is wrong in the system. For instance, one of the things that we think we failed to do in terms of the fundraising, we concentrated on the government side of fundraising, and we didn't do the public sector fundraising, and that's why that objective was not achieved. Also, in the recovery space, I think we made some mistake in terms of not building enough capacity in terms of contact center abilities, analytical abilities that will be able to phone all those people that owe us money, so that we can be able to achieve our objectives. But also in terms of internal inefficiencies, we've had to deal with internal inefficiencies as an organization to ensure that we've got the right people in the right places that assist us to achieve our objectives going forward.
You've been CEO since 2012. What would you say has been the biggest improvement that you've brought to the organization or to the scheme?
If I was at the door and saying, look, what would I have done in the last 4 years? One of the biggest projects that has been in my entry has been to transform the organization from an organization that relies on the universities for funding to a university that will now disperse directly to students. We implemented that system in 2013, and that took a lot. This is a system that affects 400,000 students per annum. It's going to be rolled in 26 universities and 50 TVET colleges and across about 350 campuses across the country. There's a massive project. Of course, in terms of the rollout, we've decided to phase the rollout until about 2018. We're going to phase that rollout. But in terms of the systems are ready, they're implemented, they've been tested, piloted. We're now managing the rollout into 2018.
But understanding the strategic imperatives, why not roll out a parallel program where you are getting funding not only from other state organs but also from the private sector? Why hasn't that been done? It's
one of the failures that we, as an institution, we admit that we have not managed to crack the private sector side of funding. We have a project that we run, in fact, with private sector, with the assistance of the South African Institute of Chartered Accountants, where we co-funded the Tutuka Pesari program. That's the only program that we have that is run together with the private sector. We take money from the scheme, put on a rent for rent, and SAICA goes and raise money from the private sector, and that raise about 40 million rand per year from the private sector. And we think that similar schemes, we must actually roll out similar schemes to other professional associations like the actuaries and the lawyers and all those things. But SAICA has actually been instrumental in helping us to connect with the private sector and raise funding.
Okay, so now there's been this big implosion. Students are fed up. They want the free education. They want your organization to really step up and assist them even more. You've had a workshop with them. What were the tangible outcomes of that workshop, except what's in the statement to say, we'll continue talking? That's not a tangible outcome.
I think the starting point is the workshop was not planned in response to the Fees Must Forward.
That's what it looks like.
It was planned 2 months ago to engage with SRCs, because at this time of the year we have new SRCs. One of the things that we wanted to make sure is SRCs understand how NSFAS operates, what are the rules of NSFAS, because SRCs in a way become ambassadors of the system. Because new students walking into campus, they will look for a SRC office and say, can we get help? And that's why we want to make sure that SRCs are aware and are in the loop.
Let me say the timing has really not been on your side, but we'll pick up on this point right after this short break. Just stay with us. The CEO of NSFAS is our guest tonight on Interface. His name is Msulwa Daca, and we're talking about what's happening with the students, of course, and how the funding is shaping up on that front, and also taking some of your comments on our Facebook and Twitter pages, so do keep those comments coming. Nwabi Sayili Mpagalasi says, what's the selection criteria for awarding bursaries? Orphans are not even getting student loans in certain tertiary institutions.
The selection criteria for loans generally is academic performance and financial need. And financial need is measured with a tool that we give to the universities called the means test.
Therefore, so if you're an orphan, definitely you qualify?
You qualify on the financial need side.
Right.
There is the other side, which is the academic performance. Of course, there's competition with your peers in the academic performance side. As we say, we're not able to fund all students that would have, met the minimum requirements, because there's competition with peers. That's the likely reason why someone who's an orphan would not be assisted, because those people are actually in the top of the list in terms of financial need.
Okay. Sipho Innocent says the disability bursary, which is controlled by your department or by your scheme, promises to buy assistive devices, but it seems that it's impossible to receive such.
The assistive devices are actually part of the package, and unfortunately, sometimes when you talk these things, you need to talk specific as to which university, what happened. Because part of the package, this is one of the most generous bursaries that we have. We not only pay for tuition and normal allowances, we pay for assistive devices, even for human support for students that may need human support who are on campus with disabilities.
So for somebody who's not receiving it, what should they do? What's their recourse?
They should definitely, the first thing is to phone the financial aid office on campus, and even phone our own contact center, because we actually prioritize students with disabilities in the system. We don't even block universities that say you have finished your money if there is still a student with a disability that needs assistance.
Okay. So why are you battling to recover loans then from previous students, or for students that you previously assisted?
There is a myriad of factors. One of it is our own inefficiencies, that we have not had sufficient capacity to be able to deal with those issues. But again, some students are not employed. Some students are underemployed. But there's a myriad of things that would make up. But some who are employed, who have not been able to get to them and trace them. But again, we also have the legal requirements in terms of the National Credit Act, that we need to first get positive consent from the debtor before we can start deduction. What NSFAS used to do previously, it used to be allowed to just deduct without even consulting with the debtors. Unfortunately, with the advent of the Credit Act, that is now no longer allowed. We have to now have a much bigger capacity to call people, sign up the debit orders or the employer deductions before we can get money.
So 2013-2014 financial year, you recovered about 338.8 million rand. Come 2014-2015, that number has dropped to 247.5. Why? What's happened in that year that hasn't happened in the previous years?
The reason for that is actually fall off. Because what happened is, because of the National Credit Act and the repeal of that section in the Act, we had to now go back to people that were already paying and phone them and say, look, you are already paying, but you are paying under the old regime, which was actually rendered illegal, and you now need to give us a new mandate. But some people were already paying off their loans, and then there's a fall-off in the debt. That's how the numbers are dropping from one year to the next. Because the person who was paying in the previous year might have finished their loan, and therefore the number is gonna go down. What we're now doing, though, is we now are signing up new people so that we can not only arrest the fall-off, but we can now see the growth again in terms of the collections.
But I'm not getting the strategy for that. What are you actually going to do?
In fact, let me say, what are we actually doing? We already started from end of August. We've employed 2 independent contact centers that have got about 30 seats that sits there and phone people from 8 to 5. We have now outsourced a portion of the debt collection, which is a change in strategy. We've outsourced a portion of the debt collection. We've also gotten some guys to do data analytics for us to find out where are these people, where are they working, start calling them and get the money.
The people in the call centers are the people that are annoying some of the people on Facebook, because they're saying, look, I got my degree, yes, but I'm not working. So stop pestering me and asking for your money, because I'm still battling to find a job. What do you do with those people?
Everyone who's not earning an income above 30,000 is not required to pay an NSFAS loan. Therefore, when the contact center calls you, and you just need to provide proof that you're not working and not earning above 30,000. But if and you can see now the impact of this campaign is much more going forward, it's aggressive, it's conducting all the data. But those that are not earning above 30,000 per annum are not required to repay the NSFAS loan.
All right, let's talk about the missing middle. It's what you've termed the missing middle in your own report. And those are the people whose households earn more than 120,000 rand and less than 400,000. So it's 120 to 400,000. Those are people that, as one of the students who was holding a placard during the protest said, you know, I'm too rich for NSFAS, but I'm too poor for the banks. What is the strategy and the plan for those people?
We, as NSFAS, about a year and a half ago, commissioned a research and study on this thing. And then after that, we went on to almost conceptualize a product that could be deployed to help those students, because we realized that there is a problem there. But again, because of the nature of what we're putting forward, it was a change in terms of the core NSFAS mandate to fund the poorer students. We had to now take it forward to the department, and the department has taken it forward to the minister. I'm told that the minister is now considering that study and seeing whether something can be done. And speaking to the chairperson of our board also, because of the new presidential task team that is looking at how we can resolve some of the issues that come out of the fees must fall, that study from the missing middle has now been incorporated in one of the solutions that they are working on.
Okay. So I want us to talk a little bit about the forensic investigation that's currently underway. Allegations of corruption, allegations of maladministration and all sorts of things. What's going on there?
The forensic investigation has been commissioned by the department. Remember how the NSFAS system works. NSFAS gives money to the universities, and the universities, they manage the whole value chain of application. And we've been getting anecdotal evidence that there are these false affidavits that are being submitted and a whole lot of things that are happening in the system. And the department decided, let's just take this to a scientific process. Let's have a forensic investigation instead of relying on anecdotal evidence, so that we can explore all the evidence that is available and take the appropriate action. And the department are the right people to manage this, because it's not only looking at NSFAS, it's looking at the whole distribution system, the universities, the TVET colleges, the role of students, parents, and financial aid officers.
So there's some reports that have come through to Corruption Watch, and about 50 students have actually reported corruption on your organization in those reports. And I want us to talk a little bit about that, but we have to take a short break, so we're back after this. Talking to Msulwa Daca, who is the CEO of NSFAS, and we're talking about higher education funding for students, and taking your Facebook and your Twitter messages, like Elungile Mzimba, who wrote to us and said, what's the payback rate for past beneficiaries? I think she means in terms of percentage terms.
The NSFAS loan is structured based on your salary. If from 3 to 8% of salary, that's what you repay, of course, until you fully paid your loan. Therefore, you know, it's meant to alleviate the situation of students when they're still earning less money, and as you earn more, then the percentage increases up to a maximum of 8%.
All right, let's get back to the corruption question, because you spoke about the corruption that's in the system, in the pipeline, in the university setup. And that's probably what Montel Mareka is talking about, because he or she wants to know, what are you doing to eradicate corruption within the system? Because for her or him, they paid for the meals and the books, but not the tuition. So what are you doing about that?
There are two processes. One is the forensic, which is looking at the past. The forward-looking one is the new student salary model, because as NSFAS, we are now taking over the administration of this thing, because we want to take full responsibility of the processes. But every allegation that has come into our in-tray and all that will now be taken in a box and be dropped to the forensic auditors, because we want them to be able to examine everything that we have got up to this point. But going forward, we have to improve the system, because part of the weakness in the system, it relied on documents that were not worth what they were written on. For instance, the affidavits that students were submitting. And now we're moving away from that gradually to say, let's rely on some of the data sources that already exist in government, like the Home Affairs data. If you're saying your father passed away, Home Affairs should know that your father passed away. If you're saying your parents are not working, you know, we should be able to get that information from SARS or from some of the data holders in the country. Then we're building a system that relies more on tested and qualitative information rather than self-declaration, which is what the old system relied on.
I think that'll help. That'll help. But in terms of the allegations that millions have gone missing within NSFAS itself, that there's been corruption within the organization, what are you doing about that?
We have actually not had any of that. In fact, NSFAS is one of the organizations that has actually been able to manage the finances within NSFAS. And it's a lot of money. To manage 9 billion rand in a year is not 2 cents. And we've been able, I think, NSFAS, we now have a history of 5 years of unqualified audits from the Auditor General, and that shows the quality of financial management that exists within NSFAS. I think the issues that we're worried on is on the application process and how the funding gets granted to the students. We also, because we're receiving a whole lot of these anecdotes that something is going wrong in that system.
So will you be looking at the 50 coming through from Corruption Watch?
We will be, and in a box we'll take that and give it to the forensic auditors, because everything needs to be examined. We want everything to be examined so that we can get the most ideal outcome out of the whole thing. We need to know where things are going wrong and who has done what, so that there can be consequences in the system.
Now, getting back to the strategic direction and all of that, you've just had a new chairman being appointed, former FESTRA CEO, Mr. Msulwa, and there's great hopes around that. But what are some of the conversations that you are having internally with him to try and chart a different course for NSFAS?
I think one of the conversations that we are having with the new chair is about fundraising and where the opportunities lie. Because he's been in the private sector, he's an experienced business person, and he knows where we can be able to tap into as NSFAS. There's one of the strong conversations that we're having is about fundraising and improving that. Recoveries is also one conversation. In fact, we've already met with a team of people from the Bank Association to share ideas with us on how, as banks, they manage recoveries. And we're now going to transfer some of those skills into NSFAS, so that in as much as we've already started with our campaigns for recoveries, but we can make them even much more sharper in terms of what learning from what the banks are actually doing. But also just making sure that as NSFAS, we've got strong internal capacity to be able to deliver on the mandate of being an efficient administrator of financial aid for students.
So now, in the call for free education, already you are assisting poor students, maybe not to the level where most people would like you to be, but where are you in the discussion around getting to free education for students?
Free education is a policy discussion, and where NSFAS sits, it sits below that policy discussion. Of course, the chairman of the NSFAS board, Nqasana, is a member of the task team, the presidential task team, which is discussing some of these medium-term to long-term initiatives. But again, whenever it gets to be implemented as government policy, in whatever form, if NSFAS is part of that structure, NSFAS would be able to deliver on that. Because NSFAS, as it stands now, is delivering government policy, which is we grant bursaries, scholarships, and loans, which are sometimes converted to bursaries when students do pass.
And very quickly, as we wrap up, if students are having problems with receiving the funds that they were promised, or if, like some of the people that are writing to us on Facebook, if they are having any difficulties, how do they get in touch with you?
They can get in touch with us through our own contact center, which is 08600 NSFAS, but also info@nsfas.org.za. Because we want to hear these things. We want to be able to be in the front line and deal with student issues.
All right, good luck with that, and thank you very much for coming through to talk to us.
Thank you.
We have to leave it there, and thank you so much for making the time to join us on the program. And do join us again next week at the same time as we tackle yet another topic that is of interest to you. Good night.